music. It's on our music. It is? I can't hear it. All right, good afternoon. My name is Dale Chu with America Succeeds. Just a quick plug about our organization. We're a network of business-led organizations impacting nearly 5 million students nationwide. Our goal is to turn business leaders into education champions. We're currently expanding, and we'll be in 20% of the nation by the end of next year. But to our proposal, which brings me to our design, which is grounded in 3 core principles. The first is the power of choice. For us, this means the primacy of college, but choice is key. Every student should be ready for college if they want to go. The second, floors, not ceilings. The state's role is to set minimum standards under No Child Left Behind. Proficiency in reading and mathematics inadvertently became the ceiling. And finally, total fitness. We believe there's a real opportunity with ESSA to look across a broad spectrum of indicators and outcomes. Our stakeholders in the business community report the need for soft skills like teamwork and problem solving. And our hope through this model is to provide local flexibility for schools and districts to look and to think outside the box and also to play to their strengths, to what their communities value and what their communities cherish. As a quick example, in Colorado, there's a town called Manitou Springs. And in Manitou, they decided they wanted every student in their district to be able to play an instrument. So rather than having music as a special, it's actually part of the core curriculum. So every student in Manitou has music 5 days a week. So if that district wants the state to evaluate them, in part based off their music program, why shouldn't the state permit that to happen? Our construct is really based on a tight, loose one with maximum flexibility at the school level. The SCA may need to be tight at certain times because in our model, we envision the LEA acting somewhat like a charter authorizer. And with that, very quickly, the key features of our model. First, performance contracts. Like I said, the LEA is a charter authorizer. We envision the performance contract between the SCA and the LEA, and perhaps even, in fact, between LEA and schools. Second, we have a Dmv model where the LEA has the choice in meeting minimum requirements. Analogous to if any of us went to the DMV and wanted to get a driver's license, usually there's a menu of options. The amount of choice you have, though, is dependent on past performance via an earned autonomy model. We have all the required indicators under ESSA, but we also have 5 additional indicators with multiple measures which can be chosen by the school and the LEA. Finally, our summative rating is an A through F. Apparently, both Michelle Rhee and today Diane Ravitch really love A through F. So there clearly is something there. What we think is interesting about our model is that the plus minus is used to signal improvement trajectory. So for example, you could have a situation where family might choose a C plus school over a B minus school. And with that, hand it back over to Ryan.
You spent all those minutes advertising America Succeeds. That was your problem. But Tim Taylor, if you're out there somewhere, do note that. That was well done. Okay. A lot to cover in there. And again, it's one of the key innovations in Dale's and Eric's model here is this mix and match approach to say that not every school grade is going to be driven by the exact same set of indicators. In fact, you would let districts to choose which among a menu of indicators to use. Let's go first on this one to Charlene. Ask your question.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm really intrigued by this idea of choice, including soft skills, the business community, et cetera, measures of culture and satisfaction, which is in your written proposal. I don't think you got to talk about that much. A concern I have, though, is really thinking about this idea of setting and meeting goals. And what do you think is the risk of the schools just deciding to go for that low-hanging fruit, the stuff that's easy for them to be able to do?
Certainly that's always a possibility. Part of our model is the state is assuming good motive without being naive, right? Certainly one of the criticisms of accountability under No Child Left Behind was the state basically said, we're evaluating on these things. And we all know implementation is the sticky wicket. And so we feel like if there's going to be a chance for it to really be successful, there needs to be buy-in at the local level. We feel like choice is probably one of the biggest levers you can pull to provide that. But your question is a great one. That's definitely something that would definitely need to be worked out.
Okay, Andy?
Okay, so no one in their right mind would watch a baseball game and say that the pitcher, the person throwing the ball, participating in the game, should also be the one who calls balls and strikes, adjudicating whether or not there was success. Why should we have faith that the LEA, which is operating schools, should also serve the function of authorizing? So how can it both play the game, operate schools, and be trusted to be the umpire, calling balls and strikes on whether or not they're successful?
So I follow your analogy, but in terms of the umpire piece, I'm not totally convinced, because this is where the SCA, I think, would need to play a role, right? The SCA has that tight relationship with the LEA, so it's not just the LEA just calling it how they want to see it across the board. I also feel like when you're looking at school performance, just generally, this is my experience working in 2 states, is that I could name for you the top 10 school districts and the bottom 10 school districts, pretty much without even looking at any sort of indicator. Regardless of what measure you have, at the tails it was always essentially the same. But it's that middle group that I feel like there's some opportunity for innovation, and I feel like our proposal here is one mechanism to maybe push that forward.
Okay. Joanne, did you want to get in here with a question? You got a little extra time.
So I'd love for you to talk about some of the stuff that you didn't have a chance to and kind of glossed over. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the LEA to school relationship works? Who picks what? Who oversees what? How do you envision that?
Great question. Really, most of our focus was on the SCA to LEA piece, because that was the tight piece. We didn't necessarily call for the LEA prescribing a contract process with the school, though you could imagine that would be something that would arise. There are a lot of different ways that it could play out, but certainly the idea is that one idea is the school could pick the specific metrics, but the LEA might say, you know what, no, we don't feel like that particular metric should be one that you should pick, or they could say it the other way. But really, there's that flexibility between the LEA and the school, and then it's the SCA that works collaboratively with the LEA to make sure that there's some certain bar of rigor.
You know, I'm tempted to say we shouldn't be using those jargony words, SEA, LEA, but who are we kidding ourselves? Who's watching this thing right here, right? This is an ESSA accountability design competition. This is pretty wonky. Yeah. All righty. No, Tony, you and Dale, worked together for a long time, so you don't get to comment or ask him a question. It is now time for us to do the voting. Dale, have a seat. Great job.
That was bad. I was going to nail him.
Oh, were you? Oh, okay. Well, you can say that in your comments here. All right, we're going to be back to voting in just a minute. Ellen will open up the floor for the voting. Get those smartphones out. Okay, is it working? Yep, again, if this is your first time, govote.at, code 405353. Let's see. Okay, we're seeing a little more Lovitz. I think it would be illegal. Interesting. I wonder, because some people probably think that there should be a single accountability system. That means the same indicators for all schools. A lot of like-its, some hate-its. This is a polarizing one. Interesting. Okay, and about the same number of love-its as before. Interesting, but more illegals and certainly more hate-its. Okay, panel, let's do it. Let's start this time with Dr. Bennett. Tony, so what do you think?
If Andy could love his colleague, I have to love Dale, because Dale was one of our top assistants. So I want to say that, probably one of the smartest guys I've ever worked with. I did love the proposal because, it did rate schools. It had some very interesting and kind of intriguing ideas. Just one thing Dale said at the very end that really bothered me is when he talked about schools with their SEA. And that's what I was going to kind of jump on there, Mike, was what would happen if you had two, say, different demographic schools in the same district, and they chose different metrics? Would there be a potential civil rights complaint because you could be inadvertently holding children that are disadvantaged to a lower standard?
Interesting. Yeah.
And that was the one thing that bothered me at the very end that I was going to kind of jump on.
And probably confusing for parents as well.
Yes.
Okay, Charlene. Oh, you're supposed to hold up your placard. Did you hold it up?
Hey.
There you go. All right, good. Charlene.
Okay. So, using the same plus minus that you mentioned, I'm a love it minus. And the reason for that is that I'm intrigued by the idea of choice and flexibility. This proposal really stood out as something different. So I'd like to explore the ideas. I think we raised some of the potential problems.
Okay, and they definitely were trying. Okay, we'll go quick. We got Joanne, quickly.
In my attempt to play Simon.
Oh, hates it.
That's a little strong.
Do this about you,
It's a little
Joanne.
strong. I totally love the design objectives, and I think the customization idea is a good idea. I just think that the capacity in the system is so weak that this isn't implementable, and we won't be able to administer it, and we'll end up with incentives that are gamed and conspire to dumb down the incentives instead of raise the bar for kids.
Do you think it's allowable under the law?
It's really complicated.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's illegal, but it's complex.
Okay, and Andy?
So this was actually one of my favorites of all 10 that I read. I am full bore in love with this. You ought to read it because there were some things in here that he didn't get a chance to talk about. The most interesting thing I thought, even though I asked a tough question about it, is this idea of historically states have just delegated school operations to district and then like accountability-wise try to recapture it with big data systems. This idea of having the state delegate operation to districts and then through some other mechanism like a charter-like performance contract with schools is a way that the state can both allow people to run schools and make sure schools are well run. This is a really clever idea, and I'm hopeful that a bunch of states are going to take them up on this offer.
All right, very well done. Big round of applause for Dale Chu and his partner Eric Lerum. Now, everybody, we have from Arizona State University and Twitter.